All right, here we are on video number 3 here, looking at social media ROI. Um, we've been able to talk about the kind of what goes into the larger ROI equation, but the thing that we didn't talk about was the investment. In return on investment, how do you calculate your investment? Well, there's four things that go into it. One is the employees who are doing it, who are doing the social media. Look at their either hours or the salary, the amount of salary. So if you have a full-time employee, that person is half time social media, half time something else. You take half of their salary, and then that should correspond to whatever the time period is that you're measuring. Content creation is another one. Is if there's any money spent on that, or if there's other people's time that is spent on content creation. A lot of times we see people and brands that will go outside of the marketing team to look at subject matter experts within the organization to help them create some content. You want to make sure that you account for all of that. Then you have social media tools. Hootsuite is now very expensive. It's like what, $1,500, $2,000 a year, not cheap. Then after that, you have ad spend, of course. Like if you're going to spend $1,000 on an ad, well, that obviously goes into the investment. All of that together, um, that's the expense part. Before that, we had been talking about more of the return. Um, Add all of that together, you have dollars, and then you're good to go. But if you look at all this, you can see like it can be pretty expensive, even if you can figure out what the total investment is and you can figure out what the return is. Um, are you going to get a positive dollar amount out of that? That's the question. And that's where I come to this one point here that I think is pretty crucial. This is my term. It is called the business social media paradox. So companies have tried to use social media because it's a communication tool and a way to market something to an audience, a defined audience, a well defined, often niche audience that exists online, and it's easy to connect with them. And as time has gone on, businesses have become a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to make it more transactional. But when you're online on social media, you got to remember these are people that you are dealing with. And if a business wants people to follow it, it's got to give them a reason to follow the brand. And how do you do that? You create compelling, valuable content. There needs to be a reason for someone to engage with that stuff. If they just see the same old ad on Twitter that they saw on the TV 10 minutes earlier, sure, that counts, I guess, for repetition, but it's just kind of going in one ear, one eye, and out the other because it's not going to stick with them like traditional social media content's going to on that platform. So, companies that are promoting the self-serving, salesy content, discounts or buy one get one free, those might work like 3 days out of the year for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and whatever, some other day. In reality, though, companies need to be establishing relationships and building a community of followers so that when the time does come that they need to mobilize them for something, they can do it. But constantly pushing out self serving, salesy content because that's what the goal is and that's what social media has become, that becomes a problem. Not only does that become a problem, companies aren't going to amass a following by doing that, which leads me to the paradox. Companies that have a social media goal that's tied to revenue, they are inevitably going to fail. It's if your goal is tied to revenue, I get why. We've talked about why. But if your organic social media is tied to the bottom line, you are going to then need to spend all of your time pushing content that does just that, that sells, sells, sells. But you're then never going to be able to grow because people don't want to follow a page that sells. They want to follow a page that makes them feel good, that makes them feel entertained, inspired, motivated, all of those words that come with the territory of being on social media. And the business social media paradox applies to any business that ties their social media goals strictly to revenue. If you tie it to brand awareness, it becomes very different. That opens the floodgates to something very different, very unique, and it allows the brand to become more authentic, um, and really develop a voice. People don't want to follow a logo on social media. They want to follow really a person. They want to follow other people. They at least want to follow other souls. And if you can really give your brand a soul on social media, that's how you can really start to grow. That's where we've seen a lot of the success stories, such as Duolingo, as I mentioned in an earlier video, where it essentially has taken on a life of its own. That is really the key here. And for me, one of the most important aspects, if there's nothing else you take away from all of my videos, it's that, hey, a business on social media cannot just be a business. It has to be more than that. You need to try to build not just a following, but building an engaged community that can communicate and really move forward to then grow its brand equity, and then eventually down the line be able to really mobilize and build its bottom line in the long term.